Folks, are we live? Are we live? Can anybody see me? Anybody in the chat? I see a live here. What are we seeing? Let's wait and make sure we got some people in the chat. Can we see some, is everybody seeing me now? Perfect. Can everybody hear me now? Is this working? Somebody give me a thumbs up in the chat that we are working. Visual and audio. Thumbs up. Everybody can see and hear. Perfect. Okay. So that was interesting. So let's quickly talk about that because that was not expected in the least. So I'm not. So for those who don't know, and that's probably a lot of you, what I'm running was I was running off a platform. It's the same platform that the Geeks and Co have been using, and I just did 3 streams and none of it worked. Like literally 3 streams and none. Everyone's it's showing it was working, but none of it was coming through, and I don't know why. So that was weird. That was really, really weird. It was funny because it shows like a counter in the top of how many people were there, and it was at 0 the whole time. And I'm like, okay, maybe people are just coming in and out. That's not counting. That's weird. So this platform that I'm using right now, and hopefully it looks pretty good, it is OBS. This is the same platform that I use to rip all my VHS tapes. And as soon as I saw what it was, I was like, this is a free service and I don't have to pay for the other one. And based off what just happened, I might not be paying for that one anymore. I just might do it with this because this is kind of the same platform that a lot of Twitch streamers use. So we might just stick with this. Hopefully it stays running for the whole time. We'll have to wait and see. I can see the chat in the corner. I can see how many people are watching. We might just keep it this way. I just might have to fight around with like the intro and stuff. Anyways, we're about half an hour in. I said at the beginning this was going to be a short episode. I don't think this is going to be a short episode anymore. Okay, let's talk. Jeez, I just went through half the bloody episode for nothing. Okay, let's go through this. Hi. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys sticking around. Yeah, let's start the show again. News, quickly. Let's talk about Resident Evil 9. Resident Evil 9, I'm playing it already. I am very happy with it. Rado just said in chat, which is, I don't know why it says Rado for your thing. Says that he is here just for that. So it... you can add your intro pretty easily. Yes, I have it kind of loaded. I just kind of need to, I got to work on the timing thing. I haven't really had to play around with it too much. Resident Evil 9. I have played probably 30 to 40 minutes of it. Not a ton. From what I've heard, there's a lot more going on in the game. I don't want to rush it. So, what do I think? I'm not going to spoil anything. So, as you know in the game, there is the Grace side and there is the Leon Kennedy side. If they haven't really talked about this a lot in the media, so this isn't really a spoiler, but it kind of is. In the default settings, Grace is a first-person view and Leon is a third-person view. If you are a fan of both the old school Resident Evil and the remakes and the new ones, Biohazard and Village, it is a mashup of both of those. I was a little worried that it was not going to be fun to jump back and forth. It is actually a lot of fun. It honestly feels like 2 completely different characters. It does not feel like they mesh, which is good because Grace is very different than Leon. So far, I'm very happy. The first section of the game is very Grace. It is very Resident Evil 2, which I love because I'm such a Resident Evil 2 fan. And now it looks like we're getting into more of the Leon story and getting more into what I feel just off the first like 30 seconds. It was going to be more Resident Evil 4, which I'm perfectly fine with because I love that game as well. I thought you were going to say 30 to 40 hours. No, it's not 30 to 40 hours. So what actually ended up happening, I wasn't actually going to play it, but my dog kind of had a little stomach bug yesterday, so I kind of wanted to stay downstairs when I was going to do a bunch of cosplaying, and I just said, well, I'm going to be down here just to watch her and make sure she's good, which she is. So I just started playing it, and I am loving it. Her breathing drives me nuts. That's funny because I actually like it. So a little bit of, not spoiler, but who cares? She does have severe anxiety. So as she's walking around, she's almost hyperventilating, which makes it kind of terrifying because you honestly feel her weakness in her breathing. So I don't mind that at all. I actually think that's one of the best parts of the game. So far, I'm very happy with it. Like I said, I don't want to spoil too much because it is still pretty brand new. I was talking about it on the other stream. I'm glad I picked it up when I did because I didn't pre-order it. I just went to EB Games and picked it up. From what I've seen, and personally from what I've seen, it's hard to get. Like EB Games, when I went there and picked it up, they were like, we didn't get that many copies. And I've been to 3 different Walmarts in the area because I have a gift card. None of them got their stock. So sucks to be them, but yeah, it is actually a little hard to come by. There was no chance of me getting the premium edition as much as I wanted to, but yeah, it is a little bit difficult to get. So overall, I am loving it. I will be back every single Monday night. We're going to talk about it every single week because I am loving Resident Evil 5. And then after that, I can play Borderlands 4 probably. Elimination Chamber news. I'm a wrestling fan, so of course I have to talk about the Elimination Chamber. I didn't watch it though because I'm a Royal Rumble fan and a WrestleMania fan, so this is kind of the meh pay-per-view, and from what I've heard, it is a meh pay-per-view. The big parts: Rhea Ripley won the female Elimination Chamber. She is going up against Jade Cargill at WrestleMania for the women's title. Randy Orton won the men's Elimination Chamber, and he's going up against Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. And if you've been watching wrestling lately, there was a giant crate that was delivered to Raw a few weeks ago, and it was supposed to be opened at Elimination Chamber. It was, and we got the debut of Danhausen. If you do not know who Danhausen is, that's fine. Most don't. Danhausen is a really big indie wrestler. He is sort of like a horror character, but really, really funny. He used to come around here to the indie shows a bunch, and I loved his gimmick. It was really, really fun. And they seem to be keeping it going in WWE. It was kind of like a popcorn fart at the Elimination Chamber, though. It didn't really go over that well. It kind of just got thrown in there randomly. I don't think it fit looking at what people were wanting online. Everyone's thinking it was going to be some big reveal. Danhausen will work. Give him time. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. But believe me, he's hilarious. Just wait. Okay. Like, share, subscribe. You know all those things that I ask every single week. It means a lot to me. If you can, is that guy Canadian? I don't believe he is. I believe Danhausen is also from the Chicago area. Or he's from... No, I don't think he's Canadian. We used to get a lot of, like, other indie guys from the U.S. up here. Really, really funny. For those... a little bit about Danhausen. As I said, he's sort of like... I would say like a 1970s like horror guy in like kind of that comedic version. He carries around a glass jar of teeth, and he uses them as a weapon. And his reasoning for it is that because it is part of someone's anatomy, it is not an illegal weapon. It is technically part of somebody, which is the dumbest but most brilliant way to use a weapon. Of just like, I'll just use a body part. It can't be illegal because it is a body part. Anyways, like, share, subscribe, all that. My sponsor, as always, we gotta do the sponsor because, of course, my beautiful, loving, amazing, incredible wife, hun, you know it. And everyone else should know it. I love my wife, and I'm a better person because of her. Hun, I love you. You will always be my sponsor. All right. Now, let's talk about con crunching because, geez, we've been talking about it for about 10, 15 minutes before I even got on the stream, and the stream started working. Let me take a quick drink of water. I appreciate you guys being in chat, especially tonight when I'm making you guys jump all around. I feel bad for anybody that's just jumping on that stream and just sitting there waiting for me to jump on. Okay, con crunching. This is something that I've seen a lot of people, especially nowadays, because we're about 2 cons away from 3 weeks away from the convention starting in the Southern Ontario area. At the end of the month, we have 2 big cons. We have Toronto Comic Con, which I will be there as J. Jonah Jameson, and I will be annoying all the Spider-Men, and Toronto Games Con, or Toronto Game Expo, which I'll be at the week after, and I will be at the Super Smash Bros. Booth for a little while, and I'm going to be bringing Luigi. I'm doing a bunch of upgrades to Luigi, and I'll be bringing him out for the first time in a while. So yeah, 2 mustache cosplays back to back. It's going to be a fun weekend, fun 2 weekends. And I know a lot of people are starting to struggle this week and noticing that we are a couple weeks away from the cons. So they're going to start con crunching. And what does that mean? What does con crunching mean? Well, basically it means that you've run down to what you consider the last few minutes or few days or few hours before the con, and you're trying to get all of your cosplay stuff done very, very quickly. That means you've got late nights. That means you, for some reason, have this I just have to do one more thing mentality. You're running out to get materials at the last minute. You're trying to glue stuff, which doesn't, get stuff done. Boomster Joe says, I'm in a con crunch. I know you are, because I've seen what you're working on, and it is going to look so dope. I'm so jealous. So why does this happen? Why does con crunching happen? Why do people always do this? Well, there's a couple reasons. First one is usually the scope of the work. And I've been guilty of this before, right? I'm like, this is just a simple piece of armor. It's never just a simple piece of armor. If you say that, it's going to take 5 times as long. Or suddenly you decide I'm just going to do this little thing, like I'm going to add a strip of LEDs, or I'm going to do a simple bit of a wig work or something. And it turns into a big, giant cluster that ends up taking you 3 times as much. Overconfidence. I've done this one in the past. Like, it's only foam. I can do that, or it'll just take a weekend. Never just takes a weekend. Life happens. I talked about it at the beginning here, where I was planning on going into the other room and working on my Darius cosplay, but unfortunately my dog had a little bit of an illness, so I wasn't able to cosplay because I want to spend time with her and make sure she was good. That took a whole day out. That's what happens. This is why I get this stuff done early, because I want it done and I don't have to worry about it. And last but not least, I see this a lot. We talked about it a little bit last week on the show. A lot of people have that perfectionism in them still, where they feel like everything has to be absolutely perfect, where every little nook and cranny and detail has to be perfect. If you are going into a cosplay competition, it's not a bad idea to have that. But if you're not, and you're just walking around in your cosplay, I can tell you from experience, not many people are going to notice. Don't stress yourself out too much. Now, like I said at the beginning, there are some people that love con crunching. I am married to someone who loves con crunching because she feels like she needs that deadline. She feels like if she is sitting there for weeks and months beforehand, she's just going to keep saying, I've got all the time in the world. I don't need to rush. I don't think it needs to be done right now because I've got all this time. And that works. Some people need that deadline. Without the date of the con and that end anchor point, some cosplays just sit there and don't get finished. I used to be like that with Fan Expo Canada. When Fan Expo Canada was my only deadline, I would be like, I've got all year to work on a cosplay. I don't need to work on it in July. I don't need to work on it in October. I can work on it in May. Yeah, no. Now it's just a continuous thing for me. I'm always working on cosplays because I don't know how long some of this stuff's going to take, because it might take 10 weeks to work on something. It might take 10 months. I don't know. You never know. Sometimes they feel that some people that may have ADHD and stuff like that, they may need that hyper focus of, I need to focus on this and make sure that I spend all my energy and time on it. And some people use it as a challenge. I know a cosplayer out there who loves that con crunching because they love just being down to the wire and that challenge of getting that stuff done at the last minute. It ain't for me, but they seem to like it. Lady Akari in chat, I definitely need that deadline. Alex, why do today when you can put off till tomorrow? Yes, procrastinators unite tomorrow. Boomster Show, is it human nature to con crunch? I don't think so, but it all depends on your working style. Some people like it. Some people feel like if they're hyper focused on that deadline, that some weird problem solving thing will come out of it. I've tried that. I've had that before, where if you get down to the wire and option A and option B don't work, maybe you can pull an option C out of your butt, and maybe that'll be the fix that you need, and it's going to look 1,000 times better. And it works on your fast thinking, your quick thinking motor skills. And maybe I've had it happen very rarely. That's why I'm not a big fan of it. And something that I talked about last week when it comes to con crunching and the perfectionism of cosplay is sometimes good enough is good. You don't need to have that perfectionism. I talked about an example last week about my Terrence and Phillip cosplays. Those were the first cosplays I ever did with my brother Gavin that I loved. We had so much fun. We had so many people coming in and out, getting photos with us. We were probably standing there in one spot for 15 minutes, having people walk in and out, just taking photos with us. And when we saw the photos at the end, we had the wrong heads on. We switched heads by accident. And if we were perfectionists and like, oh my God, we would have hated those photos. But you know what? It's what everyone else enjoyed. Everyone just loved getting photos with us. So who cares? And as I said, there are some people out there who just need that. They need that deadline. And if they don't have that deadline that is solid, that is a no move deadline, they'll never get the cosplay done. And that's fine. Again, if you know that's your skill set and you are good with that, then do that. I personally do not have a problem if you con crunch. The problem is I know too many cosplayers who con crunch and hate it, and hate the response and hate the feeling of it. So if you like it, do it. I personally am not a fan of it. Boomster Joe said is good and bad. It can be. It's just like everything else. It's a yin-yang balance. There's good and bad of everything. In chat, we got a few people in chat. Tell them, what is the worst crunch you've ever had to do? Because I can tell you, and I talked about it on one of the previous episodes, I had to make a staff for my wife's cosplay. I had to build it. It's over there in the corner. It's all tucked in. She wanted to do Star Guardian Lux from League of Legends. She needed the staff done, and I said I could do it. And I worked kind of, not the best on it. I kind of half-assed it, I'll be completely honest. And I did it, and I showed it to her, and she hated it. She knew I'd half-assed it. And that night, the night before, I gave it to her at like dinner time, the day before the con, and she was so disappointed in it. And I went, okay, I'm fixing it. And I stayed up all night rebuilding that staff for her. And she was so happy with it that it was done the next day. That was the moment that I realized I hate con crunching, because I did not enjoy staying up all night cosplaying. I love cosplaying overnight. Like, I don't mind staying up late, but doing that as a crunch and knowing that I have a time deadline, I hated that. So what do you guys think? What are some of your con crunch stories where you've just been like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. It's too much for me? Because I bet y'all got a bunch, because I think everybody's got at least one. So we talked about the positives of some people who just love it. Some people just dig having that crunch, and that's great. However, as I said, there are a lot more people out there who do it that it's not good. And as I just talked about with my story, the dark side of con crunching is a lot of different things. Personally, sleep deprivation. I need to sleep. I need to sleep. If you're con crunching, you are not getting enough adequate sleep. You're either, sleeping for only 3-4 hours, if that, or you're waking up at 2-3 in the morning to get stuff done before the con. There's even things, there's even parts where it literally can become dangerous because just like anything, lack of sleep messes up your brain and you can make a lot of mistakes. And remember, when you're cosplaying, you might be working with foam and you might be working with fabric with it, which isn't a big deal, but you're also working with needles, you're working with knives, you're working with hot things. This can all be big problems, and this can also make you have a lot of problems like hurting yourself, and the mistakes will become a lot worse if you're sleeping and you're half awake. Boomster Joe said, I only made one cosplay. I know you've only made one cosplay, but did you con crunch with that one? Iron Man 2, 2 days. Yeah, 2 days before the expo. Yeah, exactly. You did con crunch. Lady Akari, I've gotten too good at con crunching. I made a ball gown in 3 days and it worked out great. Jeez. No, not for me. That's first of all, I can't sew. Second of all, doing that in 3 days, good job, but I hope you didn't push yourself too hard. Another thing is the mental burnout, because if you're crunching, you are doing your entire brain process and everything is focused on one thing. So you are just going for 24, hopefully not 48, 72 hours of just cosplay, which you just won't enjoy it after a while. Then it becomes a job, and then it becomes a responsibility, and it becomes more pressure than, enjoying the passion and the fun of cosplay. And man, there's been a couple times where I've not rushed something, but I've really pushed to get something done, and I just resent it. I just resent the cosplay at the end, which sucks because you just work so hard on it, but then you push yourself to the point of just, I hate this thing now. And then, by the way, that thing you hate, you're probably going to wear for about 8 hours the next day. So if you're not happy with it because you're in the bad mental state, you're not going to enjoy it. I would forget to eat when I was crunching. You're not the only one, Boomster. I know my wife is one of those. I know other people who just will not eat, and then you're malnourished, which just screws up stuff even more. And then the next day, like that, all this con crunching, you may be like, yeah, but I need to get this stuff done for the con. But then you're going to get to the con and you're going to be tired and you're going to be irritable and you're not going to be able to enjoy yourself. And by the way, all that time and money you just spent building that cosplay and working your butt off, you also have to pay to get into the con and travel to the con and then travel home. That's a 12-hour day for some people. And you're now drained out of your head, and you have to be on your best behavior and you have to be in a good mood to be at a con, and it's just too much for some people. And I've learned from that. I need my rest, I need food, I need hydration, I need all those things. You may be happy that you finished it, but you're also going to be exhausted, so you're not going to be enjoying it as much. Lady Akari said, but on the other hand, Husbando Con Crunch just stayed up all night cell shading for his Marcus from Borderlands, which now he doesn't really like to cosplay now. And that's another thing. You work your butt off on a cosplay, and it might not even be for a character that you love that much. You may be doing it just because you're in a group cosplay, and you're just like, okay, I thought it'd be a good one. So you worked all that time to maybe wear that cosplay once, and then you don't even get to enjoy it that much. And in the end, the mental health strain is a ton, but like I said before, the safety concerns, like I said, you are running around with heat guns and hot glue and X-Acto knives and sewing needles and all these things, and like, you don't want to, the last thing you want when you're con crunching is to get yourself burnt on something, or to accidentally, worst case scenario, slice a finger, or sew something through a finger or something. I've heard people do that. Like, this can get real bad real quick if you're not in the right headspace and you are just, you're not dealing with if you're not thinking clearly because you're con crunching so much. And last but not least, the mental health problems. Like, the whole con crunch thing is kind of a joke, but it's also can be very serious. Like, some people think this is the way to do it. Some people think that con crunching is normal. And this is, if you want to be a good cosplayer, you got to con crunch and you got to stay up for hours and hours and make sure. No, it's the furthest thing from the truth. Some people get stuck in that wheel and decide that that's the way they like doing it. And as I said, if you're good with it, go with it. But remember what that toll takes on you, because the last thing you want to do is be working on a cosplay and not enjoying it. Because that's the whole thing now, guys. This, it's art. It's art. It's supposed to be fun. If you're sitting there stressing and you're getting anxiety over it and you're just feeling like I have to get this stuff done, you're not having it, you're not enjoying it, what's the point? You might as well stay home because you're not enjoying yourself. Because we'll all know the next day. There's not many cosplayers who are that good of an actor to know that I was up till BS o'clock in the morning or didn't sleep and I'm on no food and no water, but I'm having the greatest time at the con. Most people can tell. Boomster Joe said, Con Crunch is strange. It's stressful, but it's also the moment I care the most. Again, if it works for you, man, I'm glad that you enjoy it, and I'm glad that the end result of getting to that con in that cosplay, and by the way, your Iron Man deserves a round of applause for that, but you don't want to push yourself too hard to make yourself not healthy enough to enjoy the con properly. If you guys had it your way, would you, under the right circumstances, do you prefer the con crunching, or you'd prefer to take your time and do stuff with a long runway of having months to get this stuff done and you have time to, tweak stuff at the end? What do you guys think? Lady Akari said, I've also learned it's okay not to wear the new cosplay. Oh, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into that point in a few minutes because that is so true. So why do we encourage this? And I don't even know if we encourage it, but why is it such a prevalent thing? Well, kind of like Lady Akari said, the social media pressure is a big thing. And as someone who does social media for cosplay, as well as my full-time job, I don't work in social media specifically, but I have, and I'm in marketing, so it's kind of one and the same. The social media pressure of saying out loud to your fans or anyone that follows you that you're going to be debuting X cosplay at this con, and putting out an announcement post before the cosplay's even done. I've seen people do it where people post that they're do we have a camera problem all of a sudden? Do we have a camera? Do we have a camera problem? We have a camera problem. Folks, we have a camera problem. I am frozen. Why am I frozen? Why am I frozen? Let's try this. Nope. We are frozen. Oh, I was doing so well. Hang on, folks. Give me a second. Give me a second. Give me a second, folks. Technical errors. Boom. There we go. Weird camera. All right, we fixed it. Yeah, the social media pressure of saying we're going to get a certain cosplay done by a certain date is kind of frustrating, because I've seen so many people I've seen a lot of cosplayers post about getting a cosplay for a convention, and they haven't even started yet. And I'm like, what are we doing here, folks? We haven't even started the costume yet, and you're already putting up the deadline. And some people, like I said, are good with that, but it also puts some unneeded pressure on people, especially new cosplayers. Seeing all these professional cosplayers, and I hate that term, but all these bigger cosplayers saying, well, I can have this done in a certain amount of time, puts the feeling on them that they have to have something new for the show. They have to have that cosplay done. And as Lady Akari said, there needs to be more discussion about, hey, If you get to the day before and your cosplay is not done, that's okay. That's not the end of the world. I've said it multiple times on this show and in other forums where I've said, if I'm working on a new cosplay, like I'm working on Darius right now, and Darius, my deadline for Darius is I want it for Anime North in May. Am I going to get it done? I'm shooting for it, but if I'm like 3 days before Darius is done, before the con, and Darius isn't done, like I mean in a tote done, I'm done. I am not pushing, unless it's like a tiny thing, like I need to glue one thing to it, and I've done this long enough where I can kind of judge how long something's going to take. If it's not done within 3 days before the con, I'm out. And we'll do it again. We'll try again next year. I'm not pushing myself because I know that I will con crunch and I will hyper focus for the next 48 hours to get that thing done. And something will break, something will not work, and I will just have a complete meltdown because I've done it in the past and I don't want to do it again. So that's my rule. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. That's mine. Also, another big thing is the competitions. You know, if you apply to be a part of a cosplay competition and you say, this is my cosplay I'm going to bring, and it's something you're currently working on, if you haven't cosplayed for a long time, that's a gamble. And I personally am not a big fan of doing that. I did it once for Judge Dredd. That one I was unsure if I was going to get that done, but I still wanted to take a shot. I did get it done, thankfully. But some people, that's that little bit of extra that I don't agree with, and I don't think you should be putting that pressure on yourself, but some people like it. And most of all, it's the comparison. That's the biggest. That's the one I've seen the most from other cosplayers, especially new cosplayers, talking about how they feel they need to have new stuff for every convention. I'll tell you now, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've got, just looking over here at my wall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 12, 11. I'll say 11. 12, 13, 14. I've got 14 cosplays that I could pull out right now and do. I will probably wear 5 of them all year because they're just the ones I like wearing the most. So if I con crunched 8 of those, they're never going to see the light of day, except if I do a shoot back here and I put the photos on social media. So all that stress, all that con crunching, all that frustration for it to sit in a tote. Not really worth it in my opinion, but some people see that they have to have something every single year, so they get close to the date and they run like crazy, and it just ends up being worthless because they don't enjoy it and it sits in a tote for the rest of the year or ever, and then it never sees the light of day. Another question for you guys, and this is something that I've not been a part of, my wife has been a part of. Have you ever con crunched in a hotel room? Because my wife did. And my wife did to the point that she ended up missing meeting Yaya Han because of it. Yaya Han was at Fan Expo 2012, 2011. And she wanted to do a Batwoman cosplay, and she con crunched, and she ended up missing out meeting her. She was there for one day, I believe, and we ended up, I just told her, I was like, if you want to sit in the hotel room and you want to try to finish your cosplay, you can, but she's only here for a certain amount of time. So I ended up going, I ended up meeting her, and I ended up getting her to give my wife a video message saying that she was sorry that she was stuck in the hotel room working on her cosplay. And after that day, I don't think my wife has ever worn that cosplay. Ever. Which sucks. My wife is not as much of a cosplayer as I am, so looking back on it, she's probably like, yeah, I didn't meet Yaya Han, it's not a big deal. It was kind of a big deal for her then, and I felt bad for her. So, I can just imagine what other cosplayers have done. I've seen photos of people with big Warhammer 40,000 cosplays, and they're sitting there in the hotel room with painting the stuff. I bring enough stuff to a con. I don't need to bring paints and hot glue and all that as well. Lady Akari, I have at least 20 plus cosplays in bins. Yeah, if you're a cosplayer out there and you think that you need to have 100 cosplays, I'm telling you, as someone with, 14 or whatever, and that's off the top of my head, you don't need that many. Because you're not going to go, you're not going to go to that many cons, and there's probably 3 or 4 that you're just a giant fan of, and you're going to wear those over and over again. Like, I have, Portal's a very comfortable one. Dan from Street Fighter is an Anime North one, because I don't have anime cosplays. Wayne Campbell, I barely wear. Green Lantern, I haven't worn in years. Superboy's my new one. Dunkmaster Darius is for Anime North. Peacemaker I'm working on now. Luigi's coming back. Jonah's a new one. Stranger Things, Eddie Munson, I barely wear. Johnny Cage, I barely wear. Weird Al, same. Ghost Rider, Gambit, Judge Dredd. Those are the 3 that are pretty much the big ones. So you don't need to have that many. Lady Akari said, I have con crunched in a hotel, but then it was just a bit of hot gluing. And that's not a big deal. I think if you're just doing little touch-ups like that, it's not that big a deal. It's the people that are building the cosplay in the hotel room. And Alex said, don't you need 50 trips from the car to the hotel room? Yeah, and that's the thing. If you bring that many cosplays and bringing that much stuff, then you have to do 50 trips to bring that stuff to your car before the con, at the end of the con. So after all that, how do we avoid con crunch? Because if you don't want to do it, how do you avoid it? Because if you want to do it, good, but there's probably a lot more people that want to not do it, or they don't want to do it, or they want to manage it. Two different things. So what I do is I work backwards. And I learned this, funny enough, from wrestling. When they're booking wrestling traditionally, they try and book like a WrestleMania, the big one, and work backwards. So this is what our main event is, a WrestleMania. How do we get to there? Same thing with a cosplay. This is my day. I want this to be day 0. How many days do I need to plan to get to that point? And that is based off many different things. That is based off materials, availability, your own personal schedule, budget, etc. So I always say, whatever you think is going to take you to build the cosplay. So if you say, I think I can build this cosplay in a month. Triple that. Most people would say double. I say triple because personal things happen. Budget and stuff like that is one thing. People do not think about how many personal things come up. Loved one, gets ill. Car breaks down. Something in your life screws up. You need to add time. I always give myself a 3rd bumper just to be safe. I break it into phases. I always try to break it up into phases. So I'll do, all the armor on one week. So for Darius, I've got all of the pieces built in base form. So any piece of armor that is going to be touching my skin, I have that already cut. It's in the other room, ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the detail work, and it's hard to explain without seeing it. So Darius, there's a lot of patterns that I have that I've modified and tweaked that are going to be the main piece, and then I'm going to put another piece over top that is going to be what the actual armor looks like. Because of his size and that it's a video game, the scaling of real life doesn't really work. Like, Darius has a waist the size of mine, but the chest that's about this big. That doesn't really work with my proportions, let alone a normal person. So I have to work on that for, a certain amount of time. Then I'm going to do all the detail work. Then I'm going to do all the painting. Then I'm going to do all the fabric. Then I'm going to work on the weapon. All of that is my strategy, because if I've used to do, okay, we're going to do the entire shoulder piece, and then I'm going to do the entire leg piece, and then I'm going to do the entire wig, and I'm going to do something like that. That becomes a problem for me, because when it comes to paint coloring is a big one for me. So if I have to make a custom color out of my paint for a certain thing, trying to replicate that multiple times becomes a hassle because, I don't measure properly, and I don't be like 2 milliliters of this and 2 milliliters of that equal this. Doesn't work for me. So doing it all in batches of like armor week, painting week, detail week, try on week, etc. That is the way that I've felt over this build, and my last build is the best way to do it. Do a test fit early. I don't know how many times I have to stress this because I do this not as a, not pointing at anybody else, pointing to myself. I used to be horrible at test fitting. I would always build this stuff. And this is the problem again with the way I used to do it, where I would work so hard on a shoulder and get it completely done. And then it would not fit with the rest of the costume because I didn't put it all on beforehand to make sure everything sat properly. Do your test fit early, not the night before. And also, don't just do a test fit in wherever you're making, because remember, folks, this is an air-conditioned room. This is an air-conditioned house. Most of the cons are in the middle of the summer. Most of that stuff's 10 degrees, 20 degrees warmer than you think it is. Go out into your backyard. Go onto your balcony. If you can, go for a walk. I don't mean a couple steps. I mean a walk in your cosplay. Stretch, sit down, move in it. Get the cosplay feeling so you know where your stress points are so you can fix them now and not have them break at the convention. This is a little bit of advice that, again, going back to the perfectionism part, every perfectionist listening to this needs to hear this, and please do your best to take this to heart. This is just version 1. If you do not get every single thing done on your cosplay, it is just version 1. You can do upgrades later. That bow up there is from my Red Arrow cosplay. I rushed to get that thing done before I was able to really do it properly. And it looked okay, but I was not happy with it. But I knew a second version could be made later. I knew I had time to work on it later. And that is something you need to think about. It doesn't have to be the perfect cosplay. It doesn't have to be something that is absolutely exactly what you want. You're just getting done version 1. Version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 can be done later. Boomster Joe, prime example of it. He has done an Iron Man armor. And what does Tony Stark have? 50 million other versions of the armor. And if he wanted to, he could have version 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Same thing in cosplay. You have version 1 of your cosplay. That is version 4 of Ghost Rider. Is anyone on here going, where's the old one? You're just changing things and you're just upgrading. You have all the time in the world to do it. And one of the last things I want to bring up is with the con crunching, if you do get into the point of, you're working on a cosplay and you're just not enjoying it, you're just not having fun, maybe it's time to switch up the cosplay and work on something else. For example, I'm working on Darius in the other room, and I've been enjoying it, but I'm also realizing it is such a big cosplay, and it is a lot of work. There are moments where I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but in those moments, I then can look over and go, well, I have Luigi to show off at the end of the month. Maybe I do a little bit of work on Luigi. You may have seen on my social post yesterday that I'm going to be adding a new ghost to the vacuum. That is something I'm working on. That is taking me away from Darius for a minute, but it's revitalizing that energy and that enjoyment of cosplay so I can work on it later. Same with Superboy. I picked up a new Superboy jacket over the weekend, and now I have to work on getting that ready for the next time I wear Superboy. That is going to take me out of doing Darius, but it's also going to keep me flowing in the cosplay groove and not take me out completely. Resident Evil 9 is doing a really good job at trying to pull me out of it, but I know I have a responsibility because I put that responsibility on myself that I want to have a good cosplay. So I need to have that discipline and put Resident Evil aside for a bit. I might not have every update to talk about people when I see it, but that's okay. I'll be happy when I'm done my cosplay. So if you're in a predicament where you are con crunching, do not stress yourself out too much. If you enjoy it, but make sure you're thinking about your mental health. Make sure you're thinking about how much you're eating, how much you're drinking, and how much you're stressing. Any of those things starts to fail, that's when you're starting to start having problems, and that's where you get into the point of not enjoying cosplay. And in the end, we should all be enjoying cosplay and not stressing out over it. Because again, this is art. It's supposed to be fun. We are 8 minutes over. I did not think we'd be going this late, but thank you to the stream and failing miserably for it happening. I appreciate you guys sticking around. I appreciate you guys hopping over to this version of the stream. We might be just doing it this way from now on. I'm going to figure out how to do the intro and all that, and we will be maybe doing it this way from now on. It looks like it's going pretty well. Next week, we will be back here with a new episode. We haven't done we did a wrestling episode a few weeks ago because I was at the WWE show. I wasn't planning on doing that episode, but it ended up just becoming it. So I did plan on doing a wrestling episode, so we're going to be doing that tomorrow or next week. We are going to be talking about, not WWE, we're going to be talking about WCW, World Championship Wrestling. I was a WCW fan. I was a WWE fan. And we're going to be going through my top 10 WCW wrestlers. I think ECW gets a lot of credit. I think WWE is obviously the big boy on the block. But I don't think WCW gets enough credit for all of the great wrestlers they had in their roster. So we're going to be going through my top 10 next week. Is going to be a wrestling episode. So I understand if some of you don't want to be a part of it because you're not wrestling fans. But I'm excited. We're going to have a lot of fun next week. So if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. Like I said, we're going to try and figure out if I could do the stream early and stuff like that, like I've been doing on this platform. There probably is a way. I just haven't really figured out how to do it because I've been playing around with it. But have yourselves a good night. I greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a good night. And I'll probably be live on TikTok this week doing some live streaming of my cosplay. So have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. Love you all. Take care.